Hey, Fearless friends, it's Amy Schmidt, and welcome to another episode of Fearlessly Facing 50. And you know what we're digging into? We are digging into those F words. Yeah, those words that we face as we age. Finances, freedom, friends, food, family, all those things. So I'm really, really excited about the guest today. First of all, I want to remind you to check me out on socials. You can go to theamy.schmidt on Instagram. You can go to your Confidence Connector, Fearlessly Facing 50 on Facebook. You can go to fearlesslyfacing50.com. 50 is spelled out, and check out my website. All of the episodes. We've got over 200 episodes of the podcast up there. I also wanted to remind you that you can always pick up a book. You can go to Amazon and order Cannonball, Fearlessly Facing Midlife and Beyond. It really is my story. I wrote it just before I turned 50. And, there's lots of little nuggets in there because we are all works in progress. And one day at a time, and we can age fearlessly and do a lot of great things after 50. So today's guest, I have someone on that I admire. Today, we're going to be fearlessly facing our future and our faces, actually, with this amazing guest, Laura Geller. I don't know if you have been introduced to Laura before. I had her on my show years and years ago, and I just love her story, her just enthusiasm, her passion about what she does. Of course, her makeup, because I wear it every day, whether I'm on camera or not. It is so fabulous. So Laura has worked starting in beauty back on Broadway. As a makeup artist, she built her brand, and you are going to want to stay tuned to this episode because you will not believe how she launched this business on QVC and sold more product in 6 minutes than it's mind-boggling. So stay tuned and buckle up for my conversation with the amazing Laura Geller. Well, fearless friends, I got a good episode today. You heard it in the intro. I am so thrilled to have Laura Geller with me today. First of all, welcome, Laura Geller. I'm so thrilled that you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for having me as your guest. I love what you're doing, and it really falls into play with my life and what I'm doing in work-wise and what I've been doing. So I'm honored to be on this podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's funny because we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and Laura is one of those people that I don't know what it is about you, Laura, but you have a personality, a magnetic personality. You also have the ability to make people feel very valued and seen. And It's such a gift. And, I have a lot of guests on. And one thing I always ask them is, do you really ever sit back, Laura, and say, wow, I did this? Like, do you ever take the time just to say, damn, I've done a good job?
No.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think we all probably have that same thing. It's like imposter syndrome. It really is. And, every now and again, a friend, a family member will be like, do you realize what you've done? Do you realize how far you've come? And I'd be like, when you say it that way, maybe. But I also don't know if you feel like this, Amy. I feel like there's so much more unfinished business.
Yeah.
And, I don't feel like I'm at that place where, okay, did it. And I got to where I want to be, because I always am looking about what else could be done or what else, unfinished business I have on my list of priorities. And so, if things slow down or opportunities weren't available anymore, I might say, okay, did a good job here. My work is done, but I don't feel that way.
Right. I can relate to that. And I think so many people listening and watching can relate to that. Although some people just kind of get stuck. They say, oh, I don't know. I think that ship has sailed. I think I'm too old. I think, I don't know if I can learn that. And you exemplify lifetime learning, I think. I think you're very passionate about learning. You're not only a great teacher, and we'll talk about that, but I think you also really embrace learning.
I most definitely do. And I always say every day is a learning. I mean, this morning something happened and I went, okay, didn't know that. It doesn't end. And you got to see the signs and say, okay, that's a teachable moment.
Right.
How do I make sure that I take that and value that and use it in my everyday life?
Yeah.
And I think because you're hungry to learn and you realize you can't possibly know it all about your work or about the space you're in, I think that when you get to that place where you go, wow, I'm still learning. That's why you have unfinished business. I think when you think you did it all or you know it all, that's troublesome. That's really troublesome.
Yeah. I think so too. We fearlessly face so many things as we age. We're going to talk about your story and the story behind the brand, but I want to ask you something about as we fearlessly face, our futures. We have a little more freedom maybe as we age, even though we're continuing to be busy. Do you find that it is a challenge for you to ask for help? Or do you find now that you've been in this industry and you've been a thought leader and everything, and people come to you, do you ask for help more? Or do you find that you still kind of have this, I can still do it myself. I can get it done myself.
It's funny you said that. I haven't had a personal assistant or anybody personally helping me manage my calendar or, come with me when I do TV appearances or things like that. I don't remember the last time. Maybe it's been 20 years because really? I also don't like having, I like being around a lot of people, but in my everyday life, I don't want somebody next to me.
Right.
So I always think I can get it done myself. And the other day we were going to film a TV spot and I was going over my calendar with my office and I said, oh boy, I wrote this down wrong, or, oh, I thought it was the next day, and that happens often. And, I've been known to schedule myself twice. And, even though my office manages my calendar, I think you're laughing because you get it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I think everybody's going to get it. And somebody from the office was like, I think maybe you should think about hiring a virtual assistant or an assistant. I'm like, at this point now, I should have had that 20 years ago or more, but now, and they're like, yeah, because you're busier than you've ever been. And it's true. I am. I'm busier than I ever thought I'd be at this stage in my life.
Isn't that incredible?
So, yeah, I think I don't ask for help enough. And, but I'm not embarrassed to ask for it anymore. That's the beauty of aging.
There you go. You're not embarrassed. And that's a good word because I think that's true. I look at the younger generations. I have a daughter who's in her late 20s and I'm always kind of telling her, ask for help, use your resources, because you do kind of think you can get further faster or you have more control or you can finish it quicker if you do it by yourself. And there's a lot of falsehood around that because I do think as we age, that's one of the things we fearlessly face. We use our resources more. We ask for help when we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the resources are available. I mean,
yeah.
I feel like I'm ancient, but at 66, I can tell you when I started my business, I mean, I started it. I went right out of high school. I went into the business, and the truth is there weren't, leadership groups and things that could mentor and help me. And so I did have to learn by default. And that's why I say I keep learning. But now there's so many resources. I mean, just being able to listen to a podcast like this and the breadth of the people that you interview. Right before you went on, you were talking about, heart health and having interviewed. And the truth is, we're all so tunnel visioned in our lives in what we're doing that I don't take the time to listen to things outside my space. I'm always working on what's happening in my industry and trying to keep up with that alone, that I don't really do the self-help or the doctors or those things that really would help me physically, mentally, emotionally, and I should. And when you mentioned it, I was like, okay, I got to listen to that.
Yeah. You know what? And it's good to be self-aware. It's good to be self-aware. And I remember seeing a post. It was years ago, Laura. I think you had a group of gals. You have tremendous support. I mean, it always looks like if you follow Laura on Instagram or you follow the brand, which I'll have in the episode notes, you always look like you're having fun. And you seem like you're surrounded by Geller gals that are just, that they really love you for who you are. You have an authenticity to you, along with your story of really coming along through 40 years, right? Over 40 years of being in this business.
Yeah.
But the people that are surrounding you, they love you.
Thank you for saying that. And, I went to an event 2 nights ago and somebody interviewed me there and said, what is it do you think about your brand or you that has kept you in the limelight and still enduring after all these years? I have to tell you, it's not like that question hasn't been asked before, but because I was at this event and I was running into people I hadn't seen in a while and 6 degrees of separation, this report or that report, it hit me hard. And I remember thinking, I know what it is. I love women. I love their stories. I sincerely care. Maybe everybody's saying, well, so do I, but I don't think everybody feels the way I do. I think if you do, you're good at what you do then, whatever business it may be. I really champion women and always have. And, there was a time, Amy, where there wasn't such a thing as having influencer content creator events where I could be with all the Geller gals.
Right.
I was really, in my zone where I didn't get the chance to be with groups of women. There weren't, organizations where you go to luncheons and hear guest speakers. And like I said, I'm making myself sound ancient, but it's true for a long time. So when I go to those events, I'm so fueled by the women and what they're doing and hearing about their stories. And, and you really have to sit back and take interest and not just look at them collectively as like, oh, she's a content creator or she's started her. You have to hear people's stories.
Yes.
Everybody's got one and it's fascinating.
Yes.
It's really fascinating.
That resonates so much with me. And I know it will with our listeners too, because that is so true. There is power. And women's stories, when you thread them together, it creates this masterpiece. And that's what you exemplify. And I love that. Let's talk about.
You're in this business. You're in this business and doing what you do so well because you're interested in women and what they're doing. And so nobody better than you. You really are there to listen to what they have to say. Exactly.
There's value in that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Let's talk about, I love to hear the story behind the brand. And, when did your passion and purpose really intersect? I think there is that moment, that aha moment, like Oprah would say. But when your passion and purpose really intersect, was it in theater and arts when you started as a makeup artist, or was it your first store there in Hell's Kitchen, or was it your QVC appearance? When did it happen for you that you were like, wow, this happened? I'm going forward with this.
Yeah, I'll tell you when it happened. That's such a good question. I was doing makeup for TV, film, and theater. And I wound up getting a job at a makeup store in Manhattan that was famous at the time that sold theater, film, and stage makeup. Because if you know anything about the theater, most of the time, the talent on Broadway shows and things like have to do their own makeup. There's no budget for a makeup artist. They have people for wigs and costumes, but not for theater. And I was doing it and people were fascinated by what I was doing. And I got to work on the biggest, most famous celebrities. And I thought I was having fun. But when I got this job, they also had a line of their own cosmetics, like for real women. So the store serviced theater and film and television personalities, but then they had private rooms where you would do makeovers on real women. And so I would get booked. The reason why they hired me was because I knew TV, film, and theater makeup, like how to put a bald cap on or how to make someone look like they're bleeding or how to age a face. I understood how to work with theater makeup so I could sell it to people in the theater and arts. But when they booked me for a private makeup on a real woman, I'd go into this private room and I would use their makeup line. It was called On Stage, and the store was called the Makeup Center. It was famous. It was across from City Center in New York. And I would work on real women that were going to a function, and I'd see them starting to come alive as I would make up their face, and how they really felt like I could see that they were holding their head up higher or more gratified with the enhancement I was putting on. And I was like, wait a minute. This is so much more fun than schlepping around the city with my kit and traveling all over. I get to stay in one place and do real women for their real lifestyles. And that was the shift. It was at that moment, that was my shift. And I was like, wait a minute. Not only do I like doing real women, I like selling the makeup to them.
You were a salesperson. There you go.
I was a salesperson. I figured I never went into the industry thinking I was going to be in sales. That was the last thing. I was an artist. And I wasn't trying to sell them, but I'd finish making them up and they'd go, wait a minute, can I buy this stuff? And I'd go, well, yeah. And they'd go, oh, okay. You know what? I'll take everything you used on me. And then the high I would get from going, oh my God, they want to, and I'd walk out to the front counter and I'd tell the owner of the store, they want everything. I'll give you the face chart and can you pull everything for me? And so it was the combinations of those two things when my world collided. And I said, I want to open up my own makeup studio for women everywhere for whatever occasion they may have.
Isn't that awesome? I mean, there is that moment. There is that moment.
That was that moment.
All of a sudden it happens. I want you to take me back to 1997. Correct me if I'm wrong. QVC. All right. So QVC, you're going to be going on. Like, I mean, you've got, I think you sold 750 units in 6 minutes or something like that.
Yeah. Wow. You're good at what you do, boy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's goosebumps for me right there, because I just think that's amazing. I want you to take me to that moment and take our listeners there and say, because you had never done that before.
Excuse me. I never sold 750 of anything, of many things, and then to sell 750 of the same item. I had always known about QVC and was fascinated by it, watched it. And when I was given the opportunity, my heart was palpitating because, here I opened a makeup studio in New York City on the Upper East Side, but I worked on one woman at a time. Maybe she brought her mother with her or her best friend or her sister. And maybe I talked to 3 women in a little private makeup booth. But when QVC came along and I knew I could talk to, at that time, it was 90 million households. I was like, what? And
90 million.
And that's nothing now. I think they're well over 150 million households. Maybe not at one time, but they reached that many. And so I think what happened was I put this makeup kit together and I went down there without any training. They didn't have on-air training at the time. But I think what helped me was I had worked in television studios for so long that when I saw all the cameras, instead of being intimidated, it was my comfort place. It was like my familiar. Really? Yeah. It was I remember them saying to me, when the red light goes on, you look at that camera. When it turns there, you look at that and you turn and you just follow the red light. And that's all the training I got. And I remember the light went on and some of my friends' husbands, will catch me on TV and they'll go, boy, oh boy, you may not be talking, you may be quiet, but when that red light goes on, you really are in your zone.
You got the Laura Geller voice. Yep.
They make fun of me all the time for that. But the truth is, it's when I'm at most peace. And it's like an actress, I think, or a comedian or, something about for us. I think in a way I'm a performer, maybe. I don't know. And it's something about that light turning on and I go into this zone where I can detach from who I am and become this expert. And so here I was while I was excited and nervous. I mean, for sure I was. That didn't go away. I stuck with what I knew. And I always tell this to people who go on QVC. I get calls from people I mentor. They'll say to me, they tell me to study you on QVC, but I'm not like you. I'm not outgoing. I'm a brand founder, but I'm not, an extrovert. And I always say this to them. Just talk about what you know. You don't have to be a performer. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be thinking, I need to entertain. If you know your product,
right,
and you developed something, or your service, and you developed something that you filled a white space for, talk about that, because nobody else is doing what you're doing, and people will be captivated. And you don't have to be an expert at being on camera.
Right.
And
right.
It puts everybody at ease.
That authentic part of your story. That's the most important thing. And I think so many shy away from that. So many, I always say, you're the keeper of your stories and the historian of your life. And you hold the pen to your autobiography. Write it, tell it, because there's so much power in it. And I think that's true. I think back to where I'm most comfortable too, and I've always been a communicator. That's just what I love to do, and an encourager. And for whatever reason, I'm on this earth to encourage and connect people, and I found that about myself. And when you find that ease, like you said, it's just everything falls into place. Those red lights are going and you're looking at the camera, but it's authentic. And that's why you're so successful with what you do. You can tell you are just authentic.
Thank you. I am authentic. And I will tell you, I don't know how people are inauthentic. Like it must be a trained thing if they're acting.
Right.
Because I can't imagine not being me and who I am at the core, like my personality. I talk to customers, fans, friends, family, the same way, because it would be too much work to try to be something else or act somewhere, some way else. It would be too much work. It really would.
Well, now social media has played a big part, for your industry. I mean, I do think
it has changed.
And I got to say, I might have said that at the beginning, now a 55-year-old brain. Peach Bellini is what I'm wearing on my lips today. Laura, every time I go on camera, and I do have some makeup artists that do my makeup from time to time, but a lot of times I want to do my own. It is all Laura Geller. I love the simplicity of it. I love fact the spackle's fabulous. Just everything about it. Now I'll link everything, and you were nice enough to send some products my way to use. But today I've on Pink Bellini, and I love it. It's just, I think so many women that are listening that might be 40 and, 40, 50, 60. We have 70-year-olds and beyond that listen to this show. We look in the mirror and we see this face and we say, wow, boy, when did this happen? When did gravity, because gravity always wins. Let's be honest. Gravity always wins. Your market really, you really found a niche in this 40, over 40 market. And it has exploded. And I am so proud of you for that, because for a woman who is in her mid-50s, your makeup is simple. It's really fail-proof because you can put it on and you just feel great. It's not a million steps. It's just there's an ease about it. When did that moment happen for you when you said, all right, I'm going to really hone in on this over 40 market?
What happened was I was over 40.
There you go. Your story.
And I will tell you, that I did makeup since I was 18 years old, was trained to do makeup since I was 18. I didn't understand the needs of women 40, 50, 60, into their 90s. I never understood it. In fact, I remember when I opened my store, so maybe I was around 35 when I did that. I remember women would come in and I'd make them up. And as I was making them up, they'd start perspiring. And I'd be like, oh, God darn it. She's going to sweat and I have to retouch her. And I bought these little fans that I could position while I was making people up, but I was not empathetic. Yeah, I did. I had fans in every room, in every makeup room. I had little booths because I wanted women to have the privacy of having their makeup done. It was very unique in New York. There was only one other store that had something like I had. And, I remember thinking, I don't know what's going on. Why are they sweating? Like, what is with the perspiration? And then it happened to me. And I think I also, as an educator, I loved teaching people how to do their own makeup.
Yeah, you are a teacher.
It wasn't good enough. I'm a teacher at heart.
Yeah.
In fact, I went back to school for vocational teaching, and I got my license, and I wound up teaching makeup at a school because I really enjoyed teaching it. And so when I work on customers, which I'm not doing any longer, I would teach them how to do it themselves. I literally would hand them the brush and go, okay, I'm going to do one eye. Now you're going to do the other. And I would say, you're holding the brush the wrong way. Wait, what was okay. So what the moment was for me was that I realized women over 40 needed to start attacking their makeup and making their makeup and skincare where their needs were at that time in their life.
Yes.
And so when I was given, because of QVC, I was blessed to be able to given the opportunity to buy in bulk, big orders, because they don't order a dozen or a gross.
Right.
So I was able to go to labs and work with manufacturers and go, okay, listen, you got to create something for me that's going to make their makeup last longer, but also make it easy for them to do. So that's always the combination of the two things I work on. Is the makeup easy for people to use on their own? And will it be heavy lifting? Does it do what it's supposed to do? And, I take it for granted. Like, I really make great product.
You do. You knocked it out of the ballpark. Oh, 100%.
I have to tell you, like, I spend a lot of money. I didn't know how to charge. So, like, I remember when I started the business, I was handed a compact and I was like, I don't know how much that compact cost me. I don't know how much to fill it. I didn't know it had to be then go into a corrugated box and then you had to get a fulfillment house. So I remember making up prices and going, I'm going to charge $10 for this.
Yeah.
And then Sephora came into my life and Sephora wanted my line and they were like, your product is too cheap. I go, what? They're like, we can't sell it here. It's too cheap. You have to charge more. And I go, well, I can't now because I charge this on QVC.
Right.
And they were like, well, then we can't take that SKU here so I wasn't making enough margin on my products. I wasn't even making profit enough because I didn't understand the business behind creating the product. But over time, thankfully, I assembled the people with the business acumen that I had needed early on. And they slowly got me to a place where you made enough profit on your product that you could then invest in the next product. And then you could go into big box stores.
Right.
But that was a whole other journey. That was crazy.
But I love that you said that because the transparency around that is you didn't know it all. You didn't have the business acumen. I mean, when I launched my business, I still tell the story about the fact I went into a bank to open up my account and I broke out in a horrible rash because I was so nervous I was terrible. I almost failed geometry in high school. I mean, math was never my strong suit. But for you to share, listen, I didn't know that. Like, I made some mistakes and I learned and I figured it out and I had people around me that supported me. But that's what people need to hear because we so often get stuck and say, well, how many times do you hear about women applying for jobs and, they want to re-enter the workforce, but they want to check every box. And when they don't check the box, then they don't throw their hat in the ring.
Yeah. I'll tell you something, Amy. I had dinner about a week ago with 4 other women, somewhere in their 50s. One was like almost 50. Then one was in their 60s and 70s. They were former employees of my company. But from years and years ago. And we'd have this annual dinner together. And it really was disturbing to see the older woman who was in her 70s tell us how ageism is a thing.
Yeah.
I own my own business and I am the face of the brand. So I have legacy and I could keep moving on with the brand. I don't take it for granted because there will be a time maybe that I can't talk. I can't see that well. And they're going to be like, okay, Laura, get someone else for this. But for now, I'm sort of still very important to the equation. She has amassed so much knowledge at what she does. She does logistics and, she's smarter than any 30-year-old or anybody really even in their 40s because she's been through it all and seen it all.
Yes.
And can bring her knowledge to any company. She's a consultant. And she talked about how people look at her and they think, oh, she's not up with the time. She doesn't know.
Right.
And it bothered me so much. And I know it exists out there, but I haven't experienced it really personally. And because remember, the brand is still me,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
But hearing it from my colleague, it really is, it's disturbing. And how do women who have amassed the knowledge after 40, 50, 60 let companies know or brands know that they're helpful? I don't know the answer to that.
It's a challenge. And I've had several women on that own companies about relaunching your career. And, one thing I always tell women, and I think this is valuable for anybody, it's a practice I do and I've done a long time, and that is looking at your highlight reel. And it's not just your successes and triumphs, but it's your challenges and your failures and those obstacles that you've overcome. But you look back. We want to move forward, obviously, but looking back at what you've accomplished as a wife, a mom, sister, daughter, friend, any of those things over the last 10, 20, 30 years, when you actually practice that and look and use that time and self-reflect, all of a sudden these things come into focus for you and you're like, wow, I did manage that budget. Wow, I did resolve that conflict. Wow, I overcame this incredible obstacle. And then that gives you a little more power, because I think that's what we struggle with. We struggle with knowing our value and realizing that these experiences that we've had, they translate into and propel us forward. So, ageism is a thing, but we just have to continue to work hard to surround ourselves with people that are going to continue to challenge us and push us forward. Because we don't have to check all the boxes. We probably check more than all the boxes with our experiences and stories. We just undervalue them too often.
That's it. And that's where you started this conversation. Do you ever look and say, look what I've created, look what I've done, look how far I've come? And the fact, I'll say I answered you and I'll go, no, because I'm a humble person and that's humility. And while that's attractive, it doesn't sell.
Right.
And to your point, when you start to really look at what you've accomplished and become empowered by that, that's going to sell.
Yes, exactly.
That's going to sell to whoever you need to sell it to.
Yes, exactly.
And the one area I know I'm maybe humble, but the one area I'm confident in it is what I do for a living as a makeup artist, as teaching women to do their own makeup, as creating product. And that I never second guess. That, I may not look like how far the brand has come or what I accomplished but I can speak to you about makeup and never feel like I don't know it all or somebody might be doing it better, So I think you do have to hone in on your skill set. Yes. You're right.
Yeah. You are so amazing. This conversation could go on forever. I love learning from you. I love being in your space. I just think you offer so much to this world for women as we age fearlessly. I love it. I'm going to link everything to the episode notes where you can find the products. Follow Laura. I'll have all the Instagram and that. But also on your website, you've got some great influencers for your brand that, kind of put the makeup on and follow their routine in a day. And I love all that stuff. I love it.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you two things. And please don't answer this if it's too personal. And we didn't talk about this before, but I know you have a son. And because I follow you and I admire you, I see photos of you with your son or different activities you do with your son. And I see that relationship and I think it's fabulous. I would like to ask you how your son, if I were to have him sitting here, how he views you through his lens, because I think that changes over time.
Yeah. He would tell you that I'm a badass.
Okay. That's the mic drop. That's the moment right here. That's what I wanted to. That's amazing.
He's the one that reminds me when I start to get unraveled about something coming up or that I'm nervous about. He'll be like, how many years you doing it? And how many times after you do it, you go, oh, that was nothing. That was a cinch. He's like, and you're getting nervous again? You're a badass. You created that. Let's not forget that. He's super proud. And I think all of us who are parents can say, maybe not about, I only have one. I'm sure that people who have multiple children will say some are more like me than others. But I think we can all say they learn from us.
Yes.
So be careful of what we teach them.
We do still have that barometer. We are their barometer. They watch us, how we navigate through the world. But thank you for answering that, because I
Thank you
admire
for
it from
asking.
afar, and from what I can see is exactly how you just answered that. He's so
Thank
proud
you
of
for
you,
asking.
and that is reciprocated, and you are so proud of him.
You got it, boy. You don't even know us, and you know that just from pictures.
Yeah.
It's really true. It's true.
Thank you.
I mean, I gush, and I have to be careful because I know other people gush, and we all want to gush, but like, I got to sometimes lock it down. You know, I'm very proud of him.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Before we leave today, I want to ask you the question I ask everyone. And that is, Laura, if you're sitting on the couch and you look to your side and there's Laura at 30, what advice would you give her?
Yeah, I think I would say, don't be in a rush. Good things take time. And don't look to the left or the right at people who are further along, because there's always somebody behind you. And stop thinking you should be where that person is. Everybody gets there at their own pace, and just stay in your lane. You know, it's good to have that maybe as a carrot to dangle to push you forward, but don't be envious. Don't be jealous. Everybody's got a story. You don't know how they got there, and just enjoy the journey and buckle up too.
Buckle up. I always say that, and buckle up. Laura, you're a delight. Thank you for that. That's wonderful wisdom.
Thank you, Amy.
Everybody
Thank you.
I'm telling you, I'm sorry this ends because I would love to get even deeper into. So I hope
Can we do it again at another time?
I hope we can do it again. I hope our paths will cross because
Part 2.
You know, you say it often too. You have to let women know when you admire them. I think so often I've heard you say that in other interviews. That's what you emulate. I do the same. At least I hope other people would see that from me. We need to let those women in our life know that we admire them, that we're proud of them, and they are a badass. And you know, I think that's so important, and sometimes we don't make enough time for that. So I want to thank you for somebody that I admire in my life. I want to thank you for making and taking time today, for your incredible team, for just, you know, they're great on just responding and all of that, because, you know, getting time with you is really an honor, and I appreciate it.
So I appreciate you, Amy, and you ended with the right thing, team. You're only really as good as the people you surround yourself with. Yeah. And that took a long time to get right, but boy, I really am fortunate to have it right now. So thanks to my team is right. So Amy, I'm honored that you did this with me. Thank you.
You're welcome. I hope to see you soon.
You.
All right.
Me too. Me
All
too.
Right. See you, Laura.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening today. We know how valuable your time is, and that's why we keep it short and sweet. Don't forget to follow us on all the socials, and you can check out all the links and resources in the show notes. Until next time, go forth and be awesome.